Okay, you guys, so I'm going to finish this up by showing you how to edit for exposure, tint, temperature in JPEG rather than in Camera Raw. So for this, I'm going to use Adobe Photoshop, and these are the same images that I showed you earlier. They're just in JPEG format. So I'm going to take, I'm just going to use the ideal image, and I'm going to show you how to adjust for these things. So I would recommend that you use layers, and if you don't know how already, I would jump over to Creative Live and like hit up a Photoshop course. You can email me for a link if you like. So the way you're going to use adjustment layers is you're going to come up here to your layer item and hit new adjustment layer. And I'm going to show you the difference between what we did in RAW and what our capabilities are in Illustrator. You can rename it if you like. And the reason I recommend using layers is because your original image is always here. And these layers are non-destructive, which means if you completely foobar this thing up, all you have to do is turn off these layers and your original image is still there. I'll show you what I mean. So this is Photoshop's exposure adjustment. It's not as good as the RAW adjustment, and I'll show you why. Adjusting 2 full steps in Camera Raw, if you remember, it gave us a nice even brightening of the whole image. And if we do that here, it's way different. And I can bring it back down if I go back to 0 as shot. And I'm sorry, I think we went 2 full steps on the darker image. But it's not as even. You get hot spots really fast rather than, the whole image brightening up. So a better way to go about brightening your images in Photoshop, in my opinion, is to use brightness and contrast, or even your curves if you're confident in that. But brightness and contrast is a nice basic setting that should get you what you need if you have an image that's not too underexposed. So we adjust our brightness here, and you'll see it brightens it up a lot more evenly. You don't get those huge hot spots. And you can go pretty far. It does the whole image evenly, the shadows and all. And it doesn't, destroy any of the detail. You can also up your contrast or soften it up to maybe get rid of some of the details in the shadows if you feel like your shadows are too much. And if you turn this off, your original image is still down here. Turn it back on, and there you go. Something else you can adjust for in Photoshop, let's see, we talked about, the tint and the temperature. So that's also going to be a little bit different in Photoshop because, once you're in Photoshop, you're not editing RAW anymore. And RAW is ideally the best place to start. So there's a few different ways you can adjust for color. There's hue, saturation, color balance. There's also a channel mixer, which gets a little advanced. So we're going to go to color balance. And you get some sliders, and you can pick between your shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. So if your highlights have a little bit of pink, pink color cast, this magenta to green in here is going to be similar to your tint. Yellow to blue is going to be like your temperature in RAW. And then you have an additional one from cyan to red. So you can really adjust for a lot of stuff in here. If you did a good job in camera, even on auto, you should be able to correct for a lot of these things with these simple settings. And you can see how you get more of a blue tint if you go in one direction, warms it up a little if you go in the other direction. People also refer to the warmer side as going brighter and the cooler side is darker. And I kind of see that, but it doesn't make that much sense to me. And again, your green to magenta is going to be the equivalent to your tint setting in RAW, and then you have the additional red to cyan. And you can adjust these individually between your highlights, which are going to be your brightest areas, your midtones, which are your in-between areas, and your shadows, which are going to be the darkest areas of your images. Let's see, the other setting we were adjusting for was, oh, it was noise, right. So to adjust for noise, this is the brighter image, so this one had a little more noise than the darker image to begin with. And I'm going to, I'll just come down here and go 100%, yeah? So we're at 100%. I'm going to pan over here so you can see. So this is one of the darker areas of my image. I'm also going to turn those off so you can see the noise a little bit better. So if you go under filter and you make sure you're on the right layer, you can sharpen like we did in RAW. And there are lots of different settings. Unsharp Mask is the most general and the most similar to the camera raw. I'll show you that in just a minute, but first I want to go into noise. You can add noise, which sometimes I do on occasion. You can despeckle, dust and scratch as median, but reduce noise is going to be the most similar to the camera raw adjustment. Again, I recommend using raw whenever you can. So if you're not comfortable with your manual settings and you're not shooting raw, use this as an excuse to go in and just play with a couple of things. So here's a preview similar to camera raw, and it runs a little bit slow because I have some other stuff open. But you can see the strength is set at 6, and you can click the preview button on and off here. And I'm going to zoom in a little more so you can see the noise, because it wasn't super, I guess it wasn't super noisy. So the before and the after, before after, okay? The preview is going to show you on your this image over here, not in the preview window. If you click to drag, then it'll show you the before and the after. So you can see the smoothing. You can also tell that it's not as great as in camera raw. Now if we come over to another area and we run through the Unsharp Mask really fast, which is the closest to your camera raw adjustment. So similar preview window, and you can see before and after. You just adjust your sliders to get what you need, the radius of the area that's being sharpened, I guess, of your pixels. The bigger your radius, the less detailed it's going to be. It's going to look chunkier, kind of more pixelated. But you can just play with those to correct, something that might be just a hair out of focus. Maybe you wanted a little more texture in the shirt, or whatever item it is. I like to use this on hair sometimes in a portrait. So there's adjustments in camera raw and in JPG using Photoshop to adjust for anything you might not have done just right in camera as far as your exposure triangle goes. If you want that exposure triangle graphic, you can download it on my website at heathermarie.design, or you can email me at heather@heathermarie.design, and I can send that to you. You'll probably also find it on Facebook if you look for Heather Marie Creative. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Come back anytime to learn more stuff.